أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
No, not a very good one, is it? Not a loud salawat. We really need a loud salawat so we can all be quite passionate about this whole thing. So sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Ahsantum, ahsantum. Brothers and sisters in Islam, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Indeed, we have taken a journey, and today is our last stop in this journey. A journey that we've taken from Montreal to Ottawa and finally here in Toronto, where we tried to spread the message of Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr. Not just one message, he had many different messages. But our journey doesn't really stop here. Our journey will continue because the message will continue. If we pass this message to this generation, inshallah this generation will take it to the next and then to the next. The way I always see Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr, I see him as a figure that reminds me of Al-Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. If you really take what Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr went through and you study his life and the tragic way that ended his life, and you compare it with Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, it's very similar. So Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr wasn't just a martyr, a normal martyr. He was a person who really cannot be described in a few words. He was a person who at a very young age, at the age of 11, he published his first book. I remember when I was 11, I was just playing around. I was a kid at the age of 11, just playing around and things like that. I didn't even know the basics of Islam, rather than just publishing a book. And the first book he published was about Fadak, the land that was taken away from Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. He published a book, and that book isn't a story book of any kind, or it's not a children's book. It's actually a book for adults to read. So when he published that book, a lot of people started to think that this person is going to be someone in the future, because he was actually a prodigy, right? He was abnormal, the person. So when he started to grow up, of course, he had a great support from this very noble family, family of al-Sadr, who his grandfather was also a marja', his father was a scholar as well. So the family kept him in that particular environment, of an educational environment. So slowly, when he started to pass the teenager age, he started to study more and more in Hausa, and started to publish more and more of his books and his ideas. And he was extremely brave in the Hausa. When usually students come to Hausa, they just listen to the teacher. So the teacher comes in because he's a very important person, and he comes and teaches them this is this and this is that. But Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr was different. Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr wasn't just a normal student. He will take what the teacher used to tell him, but then he wouldn't accept it if it didn't really make sense to him. He will go and question the teacher. He will tell him, why is this the case? Surely it should be something else. Surely it should be this, and I can prove it to you that it should be this. And this happened in many instances. And later on, when he grew up, he became an alim at a very early age. At the early age of 20, he published our philosophy and then our economy, اقتصادنا, and our philosophy, فلسفتنا, and all the other very famous important books. And also he didn't just specialize in these fields, the fields where many of our maraja are known to aspire in, such as fiqh and things like that. As we said, he published Our Economy, which people still now refer to. And by the way, someone told me in London, an alim told me in London, he was speaking, and he was speaking about Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr, and he said in Saudi Arabia at the moment, they actually teach, they use Our Economy, Iqtisaduna, Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr, in their teachings in universities, but they've taken away the author name. So it's just a book called Our Economy, and they teach this book, but they've removed Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr for obvious reasons, right? Because it's such a powerful book. People used to come from outside, people used to come, representatives of the Egyptian government used to come and look for Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr. There was one particular instance where someone used to come to Najaf, and he said, I'm looking for this person called Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr. And he said, Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr is this way. So they led him, and this guy is a representative of the Egyptian government, right? He came in and he saw a very, very humble house. A house that doesn't, it's nothing really sparkling about the house. A poor man's house, really. And he was astonished because he thought that after reading his books, this man is a wealthy person. And he's a great, great big guy, right? So he went in and he told him, are you Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr? And he said, I am. And he said, and he couldn't believe it because this guy was extremely humble. His environment wasn't a person who published such books, because they usually know that someone with his quality, he will be much wealthier than where he is. So he asked him, are you Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr has actually published Our Philosophy and Economy? Probably there's someone else who's Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr. And he said, yes, I am Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr has published Our Economy and Philosophy. And so he asked him advice about how to run the economy of Egypt, and they really benefited from that. So this person, as I said, I can't speak in a few minutes about Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr. So in this journey we began to talk a bit about his message, and today we want to focus into his real character, Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr, and what we can learn as youths from his pure character, and what we can also give and pass on this character to the next generation. Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr, before he went out to the community, he had to do something that all of us must master, but unfortunately we don't. He had to win over the evil within himself. Every single human being has this evil within themselves. Evil in a kind that comes and tells the human being, tells them, do this and do not do that. So he tells them to do some satanic, some evil things that are forbidden in Islam, rather than actually going to do things that are allowed in Islam. So when you think about trying to visit a relative, a sick relative, for example, yourself, you have things within yourself which come and tell you, no, you shouldn't really do it because you're very tired and things like that, but you try to combat these things. So Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr wanted to master this. He wanted to make himself very, very strong, so that when he comes in community, he doesn't cripple in front of people. He wanted to, in other words, he wanted to master Jihadul Akbar. You've all heard of Jihadul Akbar. And that is something that we all must do before we actually confront others. Because what he went through afterwards was something that needed someone to be a master in Jihadul Akbar. He has actually mastered this jihad. He actually fought against the evil force within him, so that he can actually be strong enough to face people who were very much against him. And of course, when he grew up, it wasn't just Saddam that was against him. Unfortunately, he had enemies from his own people. He had enemies from the Hawza itself that tried to, for some reason perhaps they were quite jealous of his capabilities. So they were also fighting against Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr. So this person who not just had enemies from the government itself, the oppression from the government itself, he also had enemies from his own people. So it needed a person who was very, very strong. Needed a person who wasn't just very strong mentally, but also spiritually. How was he strong spiritually? How did he train himself to be strong spiritually? This is our topic today. There's a hadith from Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
It says, عن أبي عبد الله الصادق عليه السلام أن النبي بعث سرية فلما رجعوا قال مرحبا بقوم قضوا الجهاد الأصغر وبقي عليهم جهاد الأكبر. فقيل يا رسول الله ما الجهاد الأكبر؟ قال جهاد النفس. Verily, on seeing the return of the armies, so Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when he saw a return of army from one of his battles, the Prophet said, blessed are those who have performed this minor jihad. You people have performed the minor jihad. And what is left is for you to perform the major jihad. And they told him, what is this major jihad, Ya Rasulullah? He said, the jihad of the self. So struggle against yourself. Now, there are many ahadith about Jihadul Akbar. You've all heard about this Jihadul Akbar. Why was it called Jihadul Akbar? Whereas if we really think about what people talk about jihad in the media, and usually we Muslims are known to be jihadists. A lot of us are actually jihadists, because if you're a mu'min, they say it is obligatory on you to go and do jihad. You defend your religion, brother, and things like that. We have all these people in London who very much believe in that. But that seems perhaps to the West, that is our main jihad. What we have to do is go and defend Islam that those jihadists think that need defending, etc. But we say no. We go back to Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, and he said that this is not really the real jihad. The real jihad, the big jihad, is the jihad within yourself. So what does that tell you? It tells you that there's a war inside you at every single moment of your life. At every single moment of your life, there's a war within you. You go to a battle inside you every single time. So, the way I see it is that the human soul is struggling. There's two arms to the human soul. You have the satanic powers and you have the divine powers. Right? So the human being, every time when you go through a situation in your life, you have a fight, a war that's going on between the evil powers and the satanic powers. So for example, I'm pretty sure you guys face this. So in my workplace, and every Christmas, they tell us, let's go out and have a meal and celebrate Christmas and things like that. And I say, I really want to do that. Why? When they pose this question, they send an email to everyone, okay, where are we going to go this Christmas and things like that. Something comes inside me and says, oh, you should go. Why? Because, it's fun and, you're with your mates and things like that. That's my satanic verse. Not verses, satanic powers. See, Salman Rushdie got into me there. Satanic powers, right? But my divine powers will also come in and say, no, if you actually go, they're going to serve alcohol. And in fiqh al-Islami, and majority of ulama, if not all, say it is forbidden on al-mu'min to sit down in a table where they serve alcohol. Right? The reason for that is because Islam doesn't want a mu'min, the believer, to be in the environment where there is alcohol served, right? So I have a struggle within me, I have a struggle within me that one sort of force tells me to go because it's not polite for me not to go, and the other force tells me no, you're not supposed to go because there's alcohol served and it's not a good environment for you as a mu'min. So there's a war between me. Inside me there's a war. But which power is going to win? Is it the satanic power or is it the divine power? That is the question that we need to answer today. That is the ultimate question. Another example. When I'm sitting down and watching, I mentioned that yesterday, I always try to pronounce the Canadian way, so I say it's soccer. Is that a good one? No? Soccer, right? We say football, right? So you guys probably enjoying my accent rather than what I'm actually talking about. Try to focus on what I'm talking about rather than my accent. So we're really big fans of football, right? And soccer, whatever you want to call it, right? So when we sit down and watch football, we're really passionate about it, like hockey, right? Hockey, right? Like you guys watch a lot of hockey, right? So we're quite passionate. So when we are watching football and time of prayer comes in, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is calling for us. He says, "O mu'min, it's the time of prayer." I know it's the time of prayer. So again, the war starts again inside me. The divine force comes and tells me, "Get up, Ali." Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that you have to pray on time. إِنَّ الصَّلَاةَ كَانَتْ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ كِتَابًا مَوْقُوتًا. As-salah has to be prayed on time. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the benefits of praying on time is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to remember Him in the morning, remember Him during noon, remember Him during Asr time, remember Him during Maghrib, and remember Him during Asha. So remember Allah, remember Allah, remember Allah, remember. I'll keep on remembering Allah at every single moment, trying to remember Allah. If we forget Allah, then Allah will say, "Remember me, this is the time of prayer." And after a few hours, then if it's the other prayer, then Allah says, "Remember me," it's the prayer again. We have to be in constant remembrance. And of course there is another advantage, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala structures our time. We know when is the morning, so we structure our time in the morning and afternoon and the evening. So then I get the struggle. Would I leave this very important football match? Really important, that there are so many people talking about it everywhere on Facebook and everywhere on, on the news and TV, and on Twitter, and not on Twitter, right? Whatever, okay? So a lot of people are actually talking about this. Would I actually get up and pray on time, or would I leave it on after half time? And even then, if I actually go and pray in half time, I'm still thinking about the football, right? So there's a war inside me, and I'm pretty sure you guys are relating to what I'm talking about. Another example, which has happened to me also, a relative that I don't really like to go and visit. I don't really enjoy visiting that particular relative for some reason, right? And my mother comes and tells me, "You have to go and visit this relative, Salatul Rahm. We have to go and visit this relative." Again, that war is sparked within me. You don't really notice this war. You sort of subconsciously think, "Yeah, but there is a war going on inside you. So this war again tells me, should I go or should I not go? Of course, the divine thing is I should go. Whereas the satanic thing tells me, no, you shouldn't go. Because Islam tells us that even if your relative is a person who hates you, even if it's a person who hates you, these are the most important relatives you should go. The relatives who really like you, they're not that important. You shouldn't, you should go to them, but more important are the relatives that really hates you, or the relative that you dislike or they dislike you. You should go and show them that you like them, besides regardless of what actually they think of you. So I think we've come to a conclusion here where we know that there is always a constant war inside us. What does Imam Ali alayhi salam says? He says that Jihadun Nafs Mahrul Jannah. Jihad in Nafs is the dowry to enter Jannah. So if you master Jihadun Nafs, if you always go with the divine force, if the war starts within you and you always beat the satanic force, then this is your dowry to enter Jannah. He also says, one who struggles against himself so as to obey Allah in the eyes of Allah, his station is that of a pious martyr. If you cannot die as a pious martyr, then you can win this jihad within you, and then you will die a pious martyr. These are extremely valuable information that we are getting from our Imams. So, how can I struggle against this myself? I'm going through a war every single moment of my time. What about time wasting? Have you guys thought about time wasting, especially at the youth time? A lot of us go through time where we don't really have a lot of things to do. We either spend it watching TV, we either spend it chatting, gossiping about this guy this girl got married to this guy. How can he get, this guy is ugly, this girl's ugly, why shouldn't you get married to him, and things like that. We have that in London. Mostly a lot of, the elders, they spend a lot of time just gossiping, right? Because if they have time, they have to do something with it. So the best thing to do is to gossip. Or you watch TV. We have this thing called the X Factor that I mentioned also yesterday. X Factor is more important than anything else. Or we have got this Britain's Got Talent, where people come and show off their talent, right? This is very important. You must watch this. Rather than just leaving the Quran in the bookshelf, and probably you will take it once a week and read it, and if you read it, you might read it 15-20 minutes. What about time wasting? Is this time wasting where I sit down in front of TV or play with the Xbox and things like that? This is the reality that I know a lot of youths go through. It's a reality that when he comes back from school or work or from university or whatever you're studying and comes back home, he goes and has a meal, either does homework or whatever, and then sits in front of the TV or plays with the Xbox and things like that. There's a hadith that says when we go to, when we face Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Yawm al-Qiyamah, we are shown, every single person is shown with many boxes, right? You are presented with many boxes. You will come and open the first box, and the box is empty. What's the point of this box? Okay, you go to the second box. You open the second box and you find that box is also empty. And you open the third box and you find that box is also empty. And you keep on opening boxes, many boxes, and they all are empty. Until right at the end you might find some boxes which has a lot of this thawab that you've gained in this life. And of course, perhaps certain boxes which have all these sayyi'at that you've gathered. But then you ask, what are these boxes that were empty? Many boxes that I've opened that are empty. And they will tell you, this is the time that you spent just wasting, doing nothing. We are losing the war if we spend time just wasting our time. We are losing the war within us if we just sit down and watch TV for 3 hours. What about Facebook? Well, I pose this question. Let's talk about this in Q&A if we have time. What about Facebook? Is it alright for me to spend 2, 3, 4 hours a day just on Facebook? Just chat with friends, how you doing, blah blah, XXX, blah blah, and things like that. I don't do that, but I see people do that, right? I don't kiss my friends. Right, so What about Facebook? What about watching things on YouTube? Spending hours watching things on YouTube. Perhaps you watch things that are beneficial. Perhaps you watch lectures on YouTube, which is good. Spending your time educating yourself, which is a good thing. You are winning this war. If you're doing something that educates you, and this is what Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr did. Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr did not waste any moment of his life. Imagine that at the age of 11 he publishes a book. That means at least by the age of 5 or 6 he was studying a lot. So he didn't probably spend his time playing around as a kid and things like that. Okay, if you know, at the age of 18, 19, which is a bit more realistic age to us now, he didn't spend his time going out and playing around and things like that. I don't think they had TVs at that, or chatting on phones and things like that. He spent his time educating himself. He became a master in philosophy. He became a master in economics. He became a mathematician. How did he become all this? He must have spent hours and hours a day, probably sleeping only a few hours, getting up, praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and not just, in fact, one of his very close associates has written a book, Sheikh al-Na'man, and he says that Shaheed al-Sad didn't spend time doing mustahab prayers. He didn't. He rather spent his time educating himself, and rather spending his time preaching to people about his ideas and his thinking. So if you think that these mustahab prayers are taking a bit of your time, instead what you can do is you can go and educate yourself, listen to a lecture, read a book, then this is what you should do. Because this is probably more urgent than you doing mustahab prayers. We are following Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr. Today we want to analyze his personality. This person who was a prodigy while he was very, very young, right? We want to become this guy. I want to become this guy. I don't have his brains, but at least I want to reach a stage where actually, when I grow up, I say, I've tried to become like him. If I want to become like him, I have to stop wasting time. I have to win the war. I have to win this jihad, the Jihadul Akbar. If I want to become close to what Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr used to be. Now, I don't want to take a lot of your time. I think the message is very clear. How can I win this war? So I've got just a very few points I like to share with you, and then we'll probably spend some time talking about Facebook. The first thing is, let's do a bit of reflection, contemplation. I want to win this war. I have a mission, right? I want to strengthen myself so that when I'm faced with these very difficult situations, such as at work, when the time of prayer comes in and I'm still on the computer and I say, no, I've got to finish this, right? Or when they come and tell me, let's go to the pub or the bar or whatever you call it here, right? You're smiling about, you don't call it a pub, do you? No. We call it a pub. Yeah. You call it a pub, okay. Right? So you go to the pub or the bar or whatever, right? And you spend time there, you know, in a very un-Islamic environment. You want to decide this very quickly. You want, within yourself, you have a very strong spirituality within yourself. You're very, very strong within you that you can easily win this war. How would I do this? The first thing I say is, let's try to practice doing this contemplation, tafakkur. Perhaps what is weak is my belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's probably what is weak. If that is what is weak, then let me try to strengthen my belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, how to do that? There are people do it with different ways. Certain people read the Quran to try to contemplate, do tafakkur. Certain people will always want to mention Remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala every single moment. الَّذِينَ يَذْكُرُونَ اللَّهَ قِيَامًا وَقُعُودًا وَعَلَى جُنُوبِهِمْ. Those who remember Allah when they're standing, sitting down, and then lying down. This is every single position a human being can be in. You can't be in a different position other than lying down, sitting or standing up. الَّذِينَ يَذْكُرُونَ اللَّهَ قِيَامًا وَقُعُودًا وَعَلَى جُنُوبِهِمْ وَيَتَفَكَّرُونَ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. And contemplate in the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're always in a state of contemplation. Do we actually sit down and just try to contemplate? Do a bit of tafakkur. If you want, the Quran will help you do tafakkur. And I can't say enough about the Quran, because this guy mastered the Quran. Right? The Quran was the guidance for this guy, Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr. There is so much information in the Quran, so much knowledge, so much guidance in the Quran that we are missing. I said this yesterday and I will say it to you guys as well. I think that instead of finishing the Quran in Shahr Ramadan, brothers, I think we need a salawat, because you guys might be getting bored. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I just need your concentration for a few minutes. I think in Shahr Ramadan we shouldn't read all the Quran, because usually we are taught that we should finish it, we should start the Quran from day 1 of Shahr Ramadan, and on the 30th day we should finish the Quran. So it's 30 days and read one section, juzu, every single day. I say this, I think we should read one page of the Quran in the whole of Shahr Ramadan. Why? Not just read it though, but really delve into the meanings of the Quran. I am pretty sure that it will change your lives. And I'm pretty sure that it will help you to fight against these satanic powers. If you try to focus on the true meanings of the words in the Quran, and true meanings of the ayat, then you will be assured within yourself. You will make yourself stronger. You will contemplate. You are in the process of contemplation of the Quran. Rather than just sitting down and reading the Quran from the front to the back without actually knowing what you are actually talking about here. Remember, they say, there's a hadith that says, if you want to talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then pray. If you want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to talk to you, then read the Quran. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is actually talking to you, but you're not really showing any attention at all. You're not concentrating in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because this is the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the words of Allah. If I open the Quran and read it from front to back without actually knowing what I am actually reading, what's the point? What is the point of me reading the Quran? Yes, you might get a bit of thawab. But if I take one page and I try to really understand what is this ayah talking about, what's the story here, what is the real meaning, what is Allah trying to tell me here, then perhaps I will become a stronger person within me. So, contemplation. The second point I'd like to talk about is called self-examination, evaluation and criticism. Muhasabatun nafs. If I want to win the war against this satanic powers within me, then perhaps I should do this self-examination. Muhasabatun nafs. ليس منا من لم يحاسب نفسه في كل يوم. From Imam al-Kadhim, he says, you are not amongst us if you do not do this self-examination every single day. Now, I've tried that. In fact, I didn't try it every single day. It's too much for me. I tried it once a week and I failed miserably. At the start, I started, every single week trying to say, what have I done good and what have I done bad things, but it didn't really go well for me. So perhaps what I should do is do it once a month, because perhaps you can do it, but I'm a weaker person than you are. So I I couldn't always cope with doing it once a week. Although once a week sounds very trivial, doesn't it? Right? But what's the whole idea? The whole idea is that you come and examine yourself. Remember, this jihadun nafs is a personal thing. You don't need to tell anyone about this at all. It's just a personal thing. As-salah, some people say it is a personal thing. Yes, but you are actually talking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a relationship between you and Allah. But jihadun nafs has a really interesting feature. It's a personal thing. It's between you and yourself, right? There's no other person, or there isn't a mediator. It's within you. It's what's in your heart. You don't need to tell anyone this. So when you sit down, you have to write down what you have done wrong in the last week or in the last month. Remember what you have done wrong. Or if you can do it every night, then that's much better. So if today I've done a ghibah, backbiting. We all know what ghibah is, right? A lot of people come and talk about ghibah. In the Quran it says, أَيَحِبُّ أَحَدُكُمْ أَن يَأْكُلَ لَحْمَ أَخِيهِ مَيْتًا فَكَرِهْتُمُوهُ. Do you actually like to eat your brother's flesh? Would you? If you find a dead person, would you actually like to eat his flesh? If you do ghibah, that is exactly like as if you are eating his flesh. You are eating the flesh of your brother. If you do ghibah on someone else, so if you backbite someone else, so if I sit down here and think X who lives in London, I'm telling my friends X in London is such a bad person because he's that and that, this is ghibah. What is the definition of ghibah? Is as if you are telling X this thing and he wouldn't like it. That is ghibah. A lot of people don't really understand what ghibah is. Ghibah is that if I was to talk about X now, and X lives in London, and if X hears about this issue and he doesn't like it, this is ghibah. A lot of people think, no, it's not ghibah, I'm just saying he knows this thing. No, he doesn't. He doesn't know this thing. You are actually saying bad things about this person. This is ghibah. This is it's like you eating the flesh of X. You're eating his flesh. This is what Al-Quran describes. So, have I done ghibah in the last week? If I have, let me write it down. And by the way, brothers and sisters, the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive our sins. But they say, ulama say that if you've done a ghibah on someone else, Allah will not forgive you in the hereafter. You have to go back to that particular person and ask for his forgiveness. Then Allah will forgive you. How many of us have done so many different ghibahs, backbiting on others? But we feel embarrassed to go and tell that person, oh, I've said this thing about you. Why did you say it in the first place if it's something bad about this particular person? We have to start to think. We have to think about. Imam Ali alayhi salam says, I wish I have a neck like the giraffe. Because it's a metaphorical expression, so that the word sort of takes its time until it reaches my mouth and then it comes out. It takes its time until, but for us, it just comes up very quickly. That ibn al-blah blah blah, etc. And it's said already. That's it. You have to go back to X and tell him, I told you into ibn blah blah. But that's very difficult to do, isn't it? It's extremely difficult to do. So we have to think about this. And also, just start to, before you think about saying this ghibah, of course the shaitan within you will come and say, the satanic powers will come and the force within you come and say it. Come on, say it. You can do well here. You will feel really good. You will feel cool if you say it. But then after you've said it, that's it. You've eaten his flesh. Unless you go back to him and say, I ask you for forgiveness because I've said something very bad to you. Anyway, so contemplate. So we said the first thing, contemplation. Second thing is self-examination. You sit down and write down this bad things that you think you have done, and also the good things that you've done. But the nice thing about this is all personal. You don't need to show it to anyone else. You just look at the paper, you write it down. If you want to write in your mobile, it's all personal, and keep it within you. Keep it in a safe place that no one else will see it. You don't need to tell this to anyone. And of course, when you ask forgiveness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right, it is recommended that you actually mention your sins. You say that, oh Allah, unfortunately, when I was watching TV, I saw inappropriate things. Please forgive me. You mention it, right? And that's another thing. We live in the West, the TV is full of corruption, full of all these very inappropriate images. Do we control ourselves? This is jihadun nafs. Because a man has this ego to go and watch things, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created a human being. So the man with this ego that he wants to go, shahwa is called, that he wants to go and watch these images. But just before the images come, or when the images come, do I turn my head or change the channel? What's happening inside me? Inside me is telling me, oh, come on, watch. No, it's just good images. No one is here. No one's actually seeing you here. You're alone in the room. So why don't you watch? This is the jihad inside you. This is the war. This is the war inside you. But then again, you also have your divine powers. And inshallah, you have your divine powers. Some people have actually really weak divine force. And the shaitan force is extremely strong. So the shaitan will always win. So when it comes to X, that X is sitting alone at home, and the inappropriate images come on TV in an advert or whatever, right? The shaitan knows, he says, I know you, X, you're going to watch because I'm stronger than that divine power or the divine force that you have in you. And the divine force is extremely weak. It can't even stand up and tell you do not watch, because you haven't strengthened it. But the shaitan powers comes in and says, yes, watch, and you do go and watch. So you've lost the war. Right? So, self-examination, that's number 2. Number 3 is try to do remembrance. We always try to do dhikr. الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَتَطْمَئِنَّ قُلُوبُهُمْ بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبُ. Those who believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and in their hearts is at rest when they remember Allah. And then Allah states a fact. He says, yes, when you remember Allah, when you do dhikr, then your heart will be at rest. If I want to strengthen my heart, if I want to be a stronger person, if I want to win the war, then make sure I always constantly remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do dhikrillah, alhamdulillah, subhanallah. If you're waiting in a bus stop, if you're in the bus, if you're driving, if you're at school, if you're reading something, if you always try to have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your mind, Allah will help you to strengthen yourself within you. So to sum up, sure, some people are glad this is the time to sum up, right? To sum up, brothers and sisters, we started to talk about Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr, and I'm pretty sure a lot of us here, if not all of us, want to be like Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr, because this person wasn't a normal person. He's a person who, first of all, he won this war inside him. He won this war inside him, and when he won the war inside him, he went out and tried to fight this small war, Jihad al-Asghar. Not of course by swords and things, but he struggled against oppression. right? Do not misunderstand me. Shahid al-Sadr didn't go and fight with his sword or guns or whatever. Although he wanted to do a revolution in Iraq, was his dream. He wanted to establish an Islamic state in Iraq, right? It was his dream to do that. That's why he published Our Economy and Our Philosophy, things so that it can be the foundations for an Islamic state in Iraq. But it was not achieved because he didn't really have the support. He had more enemies than supporters. But anyway, that's a different point. But the most important thing is he won Jihadun Nafs. Before going out and actually trying to teach people, tell people about things, he made sure that within him he's very strong. When he sees something evil, or when his mind comes and whispers on him and he says, why don't you do this? Why didn't you say this to someone? A lot of people used to come to him and they used to say bad things to him. But he didn't get up and say the bad things back to them. He used to follow exactly what the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa alihi used to do. They used to say he was Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa alihi sallu ala Muhammad wa Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, they used to say he's a madman, because he used to say, come with me to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let's believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they say, you're mad. And they used to pick up stones and hit him. But what did he used to say to people? He used to say, you do not know. And he used to tell Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allahumma ghfir lahum fa innahum la ya'lamun. Oh Allah, forgive them, they do not know. He didn't say, you guys, I'm going to pick up the stone and throw it at them and fight them and things like that. And no, he said, Allahumma ghfir lahum fa innahum la ya'lamun. This is the adab, this is the akhlaq of Rasul sallallahu. That was the akhlaq of Shahid al-Sadr. At the end, he was the winner, not the Ba'ath Party, not Saddam. Because we are sitting here today and we've been through a journey talking about him. We're not talking about Saddam or anyone else. We are sitting down talking about Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr. He died. So what? He died. Why are we talking about him? But he left a legacy. He left messages. Just like how Imam al-Hussein left messages. And the tyranny, they found him in a hole. They found him in a hole, just like a rat, and he did look like a rat. But Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr is the one who is victorious. And this is why we have to keep on passing this message. But most importantly, is we have to try to build what's inside us. Make ourselves stronger so that we can come out in society and be like Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr. I'd like to end with a story of how Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr was martyred. Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr, in the last few days, when he was on house arrest, he was in a very bad state, extremely bad state. And in fact, there is a tape online, you can hear him, where his voice sounds someone who's extremely tired. And this Shaykh al-Nu'mani, this guy who's written about Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr, he says that in the last few days he was extremely, extremely tired. And then later on, when they took Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr, last time they took him to prison, they have said in his book, and certain other people have narrated, not 100% true, but maybe this is what's happened, is that in fact they sat Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr, and then Saddam came in, and his brother Barazan, Tikriti, and sent someone else, and also someone else. So there were 3 people. And they told Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr, we just need you to go back and tell people, this is the Ba'ath parties, this and that, and just follow us and things like that. He said no. They kept on asking him questions and things like that. He said, I have nothing to say. So he kept on irritating them. They were getting more and more angry about his answers. Remember Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. He could have easily told them, I give up, I will come and I will be with Yazid. I will say yes, as Yazid is Amir al-Mu'mineen. But Imam Hussein didn't do that. At the end, it cost him his life. Muhammad Baqir as-Sadr was exactly the same. He could have said, "Oh Saddam, I will praise you, go and praise you, just leave me alone, I will praise you. And go out in public and praise you and say, Saddam is a good person, but just leave me alone to go and do my work and things like that." Because that was the agreement. They say, "Well, we'll leave you alone, just go on TV and just meet me." Saddam, there was supposed to be, Saddam wanted to convince Muhammad Baqir as-Sadr that come out with me on TV, we'll just talk, because people will say, "Oh, you're my friend," and things like that. Muhammad Baqir said, "No, I'm not going to come out with a tyrant." And this is exactly like Imam al-Hussein. They said, "Come and be with Yazid." And he said, "You put me like, you put me and Yazid in the same boat? Mithli la yubayi'u mithlah." Imam al-Hussein said, "Me, I would not be like Imam al-Hussein. Imam al-Hussein, I would not be like Yazid." So they put him, and they kept on asking him questions, and he kept on saying, "No, and I have no answer to this." Until I've heard also, they told him, "How do you want to die? How do you want to die?" And he said, "I want to die like Jaddi al-Hussein alayhi salam." And he said, "I want to die like my grandfather al-Hussein." So in fact, when I went to Iraq, I spoke to the relative of a person who buried Shahid al-Sadr. And then after many years, in 1997 I believe, that they changed, because it was a secret grave. So not a lot of people could come and come to his grave. They actually they dig his grave again, so they relocated his grave. And the people, and I've actually seen photos, and I believe some people here have seen also photos, that the flesh was still there. After 17 years of his death, the flesh of Muhammad Baqir as-Sadr was still exactly there. And this is, Sallu ala Muhammad wa. And they say that the shuhada, you don't get, their flesh are not eaten when in the grave. And that was exactly seen. And people swear that they saw his grave, they saw his body, Muhammad Baqir as-Sadr, is exactly as it was when he died. And one person says, when we opened Muhammad Baqir as-Sadr after 17 years, we actually saw his head chopped off 3/4. So they were killing him like how they chopped off Imam al-Hussein's head. So then what happened actually was this particular dialogue between Saddam and Muhammad Baqir as-Sadr continued until this third guy got really frustrated, and he took out the gun and shot Muhammad Baqir as-Sadr. And perhaps later on they came and cut his head to make sure he dies, right? But then what really happened is very interesting. What happened is, then later on they took Muhammad Baqir as-Sadr, they called Muhammad Sadiq as-Sadr, the martyr, the Sadr al-Thani, and he rejected, he didn't want to, so they called another person from Al Sadr to take him to the burial. But then what happened was very interesting. The third person went back home, right? He is the person who shot Muhammad Baqir as-Sadr. He went back home, and he opened the door, he started walking, and he found his 12-year-old son. 12-year-old son picked a gun. This is narrated by someone at that time. He picked up his gun, picked up a gun, a 12-year-old, he's found his father's gun, picked it up and shot his father. His father died. Then his mother came in and started screaming. When she started screaming, then the relative of this person came in. He came in, he saw his relative dead, and he thought that his wife killed him or something like that. So he got very angry, some disputes happened between them. He picked up the gun and he killed his wife as well. Killed the wife of that particular person. And then so after that, if I'm not mistaken, someone else came in, and then huge disputes happened, and then people started firing at it. So basically the whole family got wiped away in just a few minutes after the death of Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr. That was narrated by a person. So you see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is like Hussein al-Kamil, if people know, a relative. Hussein Kamil was, he married the sister of Saddam, the daughter of Saddam. Hussein Kamil, he stood up in a tank in an intifada in 1991, and he said, "You are Hussein, I'm Hussein." He's called Hussein Kamil and Imam al-Hussein. He said, "You are Hussein, I'm Hussein. Let's see who wins now." And he hit the tomb of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. But what happened to Hussein Kamil? He left Iraq and he started saying bad things about Saddam. Saddam is a tyrant, you know, so blah blah, he oppresses people. And Saddam went and told him, he sent him in a message, he said, "Look, you know, I forgive you, come back." And he said, "Oh, Saddam's forgiven me, you know, I'm gonna go back." So he went back to Iraq, and of course Saddam was tricking him, and he killed him and his family. So, to end this journey, that this universal message that we're trying to spread in 3 cities here in Canada, I say the following, that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us all to continuously read and educate ourselves about the message of Imam Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr, and continuously also try to strive and fight against this satanic powers, this satanic evil powers that are in us. Try to make ourselves strong enough so that we can come out in society and fight against oppression. Not literally fight in terms of war, but fight in terms of our thinking. Come out and give the right words, like what Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr came out with, to fight against what is coming in the West. Especially a lot of things are said against Islam, so we come out and fight in terms of words. We come out and say, this is the true meaning of Islam, this is the true meaning of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi and his Ahlul Bayt. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.